Hey, good morning, everybody. It's Hammer. Today is Wednesday, June 18th, 2025. I, of course, am here at the Rate Sensei Show, where you can join me live each and every weekday morning, 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time. This morning, we're going to be talking about the Fed meeting today. We're going to talk about whether we will see rates get cut. Spoiler alert, we all know they won't. We're going to talk about the dot plot. Nikki Tamaros had an article this morning about that dot plot. We're going to go into a little more detail about that, talk about that this morning. Also, remember, tomorrow is Juneteenth. I am going to do a show because I work on Juneteenth. However, markets are closed, and we're going to talk about how that might affect what lenders do today. So stay with me. If you're here this morning, say good morning. Good to see you, Megan Bassell, Julie Lawrence, Mallory Fotiadis, Jerry Avila. Great to have all of you. Ron Siegel says today is National Want to Get Away Day. Who wants to get away? I don't want to get away. I've done some getaway. I do love the getaway thing, though. So if you could get away, Ron says today is National Getaway Day. So if you could get away, that's the question of the day. If you could get away, where would you go? If you were going to get away today, where would you go? Money, no object. There we go. All right. So that is the question of the day today. We're going to have some question of the day. If you were going to get away today, where would you go? Money's no object. Somebody's going to step in and gift this to you, your billionaire friend, Elon Musk. If you don't like Elon, pick another billionaire. They're going to go ahead and they're going to do that for you. So let us know if you could get away to anywhere, where would you get away today? Curious about that. So anyway, if you're watching on the replay, don't forget, give me a hashtag replay. Let me know in the comments that you were here. Speaking of comments, comment. Answer the question of the day. Tell me your feelings and thoughts. Say hello. All of those comments help with engagement. Engagement helps us to get more viewers. So always appreciate you doing that. Also, if you would like a quick reminder that I'm going live each day, you can go ahead and sign up for a text alert. We send that out right before I go live. HMMR.io. That's our Hammer Solutions short code. HMMR.io/reminder. And go ahead and use this cool QR code over here if you'd like. Remember, if you're on your phone, you can take a screenshot, go back into your photos. That QR code will still work, which is cool. Hello, George. You want to say hi to everybody, George? George is here this morning. He's just getting back in the room. How are you, George? Right? George is the cutie buff boy here. Look at those eyes, those amber eyes. Anyway, good morning, George. Don't be distracting. I got work to do. Got to make the money, dude. So anyway, let's get back on track here. Remember, answer the question of the day. Today is National Getaway Day, according to Mr. Ron Siegel. So if you could get away anywhere, where would you go? That's what we want to know. Otherwise, it's Fed Day. Let's talk about what we've got going on this morning. So many things to talk about. So first things first, we'll start off with the technicals and see where we are at this morning. Let me bounce this up and over. And here we go. So right now, mortgage bonds, you can see we are up 9 basis points. You see that right here to start the day. That's certainly a wonderful thing. If we compare where we were yesterday when pricing came out around 10 a.m., we were right down here, right around that 99 mark, right here. You can see that this morning we're up higher. When things are up like this, what does that mean? That means smiley face. That means you are going to see better rate sheets this morning. Got to give him a cowboy hat. There we go. All right. So that means you are going to see some better rate sheets this morning. We saw a bit of improvement through the day yesterday. You can see that here, right? So we did see bonds improve. The question about why they improved, there's definitely an argument to be made that it was a bit of a safe haven move because markets are starting to wonder if the U.S. will get involved in the Israel-Iran conflict. However, oil hit its highest price since January, and we still saw things improve, which actually, is kind of a good thing. And that also makes it more likely that we were seeing those moves because of that. So keep that in mind. Go ahead and answer the question of the day on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and remove let's see, hide message. All right. So with that said, one more time. If today is National Getaway Day, if you were going to get away, money is no object. Where would you go? Let me know in the comments. We're going to come back at the end and talk about that. In the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and throw the lock advice up on the screen. So we're going to cautiously float everything. Loans closing with more time. Not really worried about this Fed meeting, honestly. If you've got loans closing towards the middle to end of July, I would not be panic locking, even if we see a negative reaction today and we see bonds move lower. Right now, the 10-year Treasury yield, look at back in that 4.36 range. It's below 4.4. 4.4, I don't talk about it a lot, but 4.4 is really kind of a line in the sand. So the fact that it is back below that 4.4 mark is great. If it were to shoot up today, that would happen if the dot plot shows only one rate cut projected instead of two. I'll go into that in a minute. But if we do see this happen, loans closing towards the end of July or loans you're just getting applications on, I wouldn't panic lock them right now. I think even if we see things get worse, they'll get better again. Not too worried about that. I mean, if we take a look at where rate sheets are at, we are 6.88, 6.88, not the absolute best. We did see that right here, 6.85. That was the best we've seen in a while. And again, this is Mortgage News Daily's algorithm, if you will, of a conglomeration of different rate sheets, but 6.87 was the previous best. So, I mean, we are right there in the low point of the range as far as where rates would go. If rates do move a smidge higher, it's only going to be a smidge, even if markets are concerned that the Fed won't cut rates. So right now, our expectation of Fed rate cuts, if we look at the dot plot, that's right here. So the Fed meeting today, 2 p.m. Eastern time. The Fed is going to release their policy statement. Expectations for a Fed rate cut are basically zero. We've talked about that many times. 99.9% expectation that we will stay exactly where we are at when this meeting is done. But we want to go into that dot plot and talk about that. So this dot plot came out on March 19th of 2025. Remember, that was the last dot plot before the tariffs hit on April 2nd. This is basically what you see in blue right here. This is expectations of 2 Fed rate cuts. It's a range between 3.75 and 4.0. And that is 2 rate cuts. Right now, we're between 4.25 and 4.5. So let's just use the one side to make it easy, right? We're at 4.25. This would be 2 rate cuts to 3.75. That was the expectation for 2025. Markets will also be looking at some of that 2026 vibe. That's a 3.5, right? So I'm sorry, that's at 3.25. So 3.25 was the expectation for 2026. Now, when we get this new dot plot, what happens if instead of 2, this is 2 Fed rate cuts? What happens if that only becomes 1 Fed rate cut, right? And what would that mean, and what would that do to expectations? So if the dot plot shows only 1 Fed rate cut, then markets are going to be more concerned that the Fed is giving a hawkish message, and they're really going to be listening to Fed Chair Jerome Powell's press conference at 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. So when it comes to rate sheets, we want to start being aware right around that 2 p.m. mark. Let me see if I pull this up, if I can get that. I might have to make it smaller to fit that 2. There it is. So today we are looking right here at 2 p.m. This is the first line in the sand, and then right about here at 3:15. Generally, at about 3:15 p.m. is when you see markets kind of settle and enough questions hit there for Powell for everyone to kind of settle in. Now, remember, lenders might be slow to improve pricing this afternoon heading into tomorrow's Juneteenth holiday because markets globally are still going to be open, and we don't know what Friday morning is going to bring. So Friday morning could bring some more risk. We want to be aware of that potential for that. So keep that in mind. But loans that are closing in the next 2 weeks have to make a decision based on how things go today. Everything should float into the Fed meeting. The first reaction, do we want to, this could end up being a head fake. Sometimes we will see a negative reaction at 2 p.m. when the policy statement comes out and that dot plot comes out. Let's say that at 2 p.m. the dot plot were to say, hey, we think it's more likely that we're only going to see one rate cut this year, then what's going to happen is that, yes, buddy. Then what's going to happen is that markets are going to, you're going to see bonds lose ground. You'd like to, yes, I know. Thank you. I know. You're very cute. However, if we lock immediately, and then Powell comes in and calms everybody down, then you might have locked too early. But I would lean towards locking loans closing in the next 2 weeks if we see negative movement around 2 p.m. As long as it's not enough for repricing worse, then continue floating. But if we see a big move negative, we want to go ahead and be ready to lock those loans today. Loans that have more time, we get the next BLS jobs report on July 3rd, and that's going to be a big part of what today's questions are going to be, right? Markets are anticipating that we have seen some more softening to the labor market. So if we look at, this is Nikki Temeros's article for this morning. He said behind this week's calculus, tariffs make this week's projections fraught. The central bank's last projections were released before the tariffs on April 2nd. The case for officials to continue to lower their rate cut projections is simple. Higher taxes on imported goods have introduced new risks of higher inflation. Now, problem is the last 3 inflation reports have come in very good. So this one was expected to start to see tariffs hit, and we didn't see as much of an impact as expected. So that's where there's going to be some argument. Last meeting, the Fed used the word uncertain. Powell used that word in some form of uncertain 17 times, right? So if you want a drinking game today, drink every time Powell says the word uncertain. I think we are going to get a second act of that show where he is going to say that over and over and over again, because now not only do we have the tariff uncertainty, which is still, they're still curious on how that's going to affect things. We have seen tariffs roll back some, but you're still talking huge moves on steel, aluminum, and a lot of other goods that are coming in from China that, are expected to hit onto the onto consumers at some point, right? And be passed along. But on top of that, we've now got the drama in Israel and Iran and questions about whether the U.S. is going to be involved. Now, the U.S. has moved a couple of battleships over, and I believe it was a fleet of aircraft carriers, but we're moving ships into the area, and that would put us in a position to jump in to that conflict. Right now, we are just supporting Israel and providing them with munitions. Would that mean that we get directly involved? There's a lot of questions on that. So you're going to see that coming into play today as well. Keep that in mind. Mike Morano says 2 cuts, no negative Nancy's. Yeah, you know what? I don't know, man. We do know that the Fed gets accused of acting too late, right? And there's probably some truth to that. They do tend to act a little bit late. They are not proactive, but that's where things are all about. This article, by the way, that was written by Temeros, what he talks about here is that there is some argument that the dot plot, it's there to allow markets to have more transparency into what the Fed is thinking, but there's an argument that it is that it could be refined because it does not really have a scenario for them to move quickly, like if they're making decisions quickly on things and reacting to things, and that's the argument on it. So come on, buddy, you're kind of in the way. You're kind of in the way. Yes, you are. So anyway, that's what we got going on, my friends. It's going to be an interesting day. If you are not getting our text alerts, absolutely make sure that you sign up for those. They're $7 a month, and they don't see. This is why he steps on my keyboard, messes me all up. So, well, we're going to stop sharing anyway. So sign up for those text alerts, www.raytexalerts.com, and we will keep you posted as things roll out this afternoon on the Fed front, where, how bonds react, how traders are reacting to the news and what's said. So we'll keep you there. Randy said YouTube is not working today. Yeah, I'll have to check and see. Something must be up. That was happening yesterday, and I see nobody on it today. So thanks for letting me know, Randy. I will. I'm going to click that link and check that out. So um, Ron said, "Do I really say the Fed moving quickly, always late?" Yeah, well, that's the thing, though, is I said moving quickly. Not that they do move quickly, but there's arguments that the dot plot doesn't open the door for them to move quickly uh, and still provide transparency. But I agree that Powell and this Fed does tend to wait a little bit long. And that's obviously, we know that today Trump is going to say that for sure. He's going to come out and complain that they should have cut rates and they didn't cut rates and they're waiting too long and what are they waiting for, and so we'll see some of that drama as well, which should be interesting, and we'll go from there. So all right, my friends, I will be on tomorrow, Juneteenth, even though markets will be closed. We'll talk about what happened today with the Fed and what could possibly happen on Friday's data. I think that we've got something interesting to talk about tomorrow, even though markets will be closed. So I will be on. There will be a show, and hopefully you'll join me. And I will do my best to make sure that YouTube is working, my friends. So, all right, I'll catch y'all later, and we'll see how it goes. Take care. Bye-bye.